Welcome to the Meander Travel Podcast and episode number 25. We are thrilled that you have decided to join us today, and we have an interesting topic that not only ties into a recent trip of ours, but has been something that has enriched both of our lives since we were kids. So sit back and relax, or drive safely if you're in the car. That's where I listen to podcasts a lot. As we share with you some personal stories of how hosting a foreign exchange student can change your life and that of your family forever. Wheels up.
We're gonna be two hearts running wild.
Hello, I'm Tony, and I'm here with my wife, Julie.
Hi.
And we are coming to you live from our bonus room,
Whoop, whoop.
home studio. Last time we did a recording, we were in London at the Boat Pod, and we did 3 podcasts there. That was really a lot of fun. It was a great trip, and we're kind of missing Europe right now because we've been home for about a month.
That was a great trip, and it's always nice to come home, but we're already itching to get away again. And we'll discuss a little bit more of that trip today. But this podcast is going to go just a little bit sideways, so I hope our listeners enjoy it.
Yeah, speaking of listeners, we recently had feedback asking for more personal stories, not just travel destinations, which we love to do because we have so many of them. But she might enjoy this one as it may just have to do with how our obsession of travel may have even been sparked.
Yeah, and I think she also wanted us to kind of circle back to the other part of what this podcast was originally intended for, what we wanted it to be about. So we were going to do travel destinations, but also kind of record our journey to become full-time travelers or digital nomads, if you want to call us that. And that has been just a little bit slower than we'd like.
Yeah, let's start with that. An apology. We have not done a great job of that. We were doing it on every episode for a while, and then all of a sudden we became like just about travel. And that's because there's not been a lot of updates. We tried some things to do some things, but we do not have the downsizing yet.
Yeah, it's a slower process than we thought it might be. And that's sometimes due in part to the fact that we still have adult children that are rebounding and coming back home and living with us and our dog. So it's been hard to make a lot of progress on that front. But we are going to do an end of the year recap podcast. And then we'll go a little bit more in depth to what this year really looked like. Where did we go? How long were we gone? How we progressed in some of our goals.
And
what we
not.
Or not. What we learned about ourselves and each other. And then all of the time that we spent together this year. So I think it will be interesting to deconstruct and analyze kind of how each of us felt about being away from home for so long.
So we're looking forward to that one. But for now, let's change gears and talk about foreign exchange students. And I'll start with, I had 2 growing up. I had one when I was around 12 years old, and then I had another one when I was 17. We had Hilda from Norway and Linus from Sweden.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I also had a foreign exchange student, and I think it's interesting how we have such similar backgrounds in history sometimes. We have so many things that our families both did. So we had a foreign exchange student from Spain. Her name was Sonia, and she actually came to us in a really unique time in our family's history. My parents were separated, just about ready to get a divorce. I was in college, and my younger sister was a sophomore in high school. So looking back, it seems like an odd time to have gotten a foreign exchange student, but it was great.
Before we go into more details and personal experiences with our exchange students, let's talk about why do people typically sign up to host a foreign exchange student?
Well, I think most people, like the idea of helping out an international student, perhaps in a short term. You can get students from anywhere between a month to a full school year. And I think, ours was a full school year. I don't know if both of yours were.
Nope,
or
I'll
not.
talk about it.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of other people also believe that it would be fun for their family to learn about another country, have another culture invited into your home, experience what that is like. And in both of our cases, we had older siblings, one of which was me, you weren't, but had gone off to college and left a sibling at home. So maybe our parents thought the younger one would be lonely.
Yeah, it's not just helping out a student that needs a home to live in. It's, I think for our family, the first one was maybe that. Hilda was the same age as my sister, and she was, 5.5 years older. So she was the oldest. We were all in school, and she was with us. But with Linus, my brother and sister had all gone off to college, and I was at home alone. And I think maybe my parents were selfish and said, "Hey, we want somebody to be there for Tony and a companion when his siblings are gone, and he's not a lonely child in the house."
Maybe they just didn't want to entertain you.
Yeah,
So it's been a long time since our family hosted an
talking
exchange student.
35 plus years here.
Yeah, long time.
But a lot of these things still are the same today.
Well, it's funny because I asked both of my parents separately because I couldn't remember how they got connected with Sonia. I mean, I was a college kid. I have no idea what the process was like. So I'm assuming that they found out about the program through our school system. Maybe they got a letter that was sent home and like regular correspondence asking for help with international students or something like that. I think that's probably the best case scenario. Neither of my parents could remember. But I'm guessing like living where you guys lived in a small town, kind of, sort of, did you have a Rotary? Is that where you got yours from?
We had both of ours were Rotary exchange students, and their programs are a little bit different. I think that my parents weren't in the Rotary, but they had so many friends and people that we knew, like small town, and there's enough that, hey, we got an exchange student coming, and who would like to host? And my parents probably just volunteered. And with that volunteer, something that we've got to discuss is that there's monetary. You are going to be getting into to hosting somebody. That there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, hey, we want to have some kid come stay with us.
Yeah, so I did do a little research about this because it is modern day and maybe there's been a lot of changes. So if you wanted to host a student today, there are a number of different organizations. Like, for example, you could check the website of AFS USA, and they're a nonprofit that facilitates international and, by the way, domestic cultural exchange programs as well. And so if you're not sure that you want to sign on for something quite so far away, because maybe that seems very scary to you, you could do a domestic exchange. Another big one is ISE, and that stands for International Student Exchange. And then EF, which is Education First. And if you've listened to some of our previous podcasts,
We love EF.
we love EF. Our daughter took an EF gap year, and we even did a podcast with her and her boyfriend about EF. So they also have an exchange program. But interestingly enough, part of what inspired this podcast right now is we have some friends in Wisconsin, some very close friends of ours, that have an exchange student in their home as we speak. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more on that later. But their son attends a small private Catholic school, and their exchange student was through a Catholic organization called Bonding. But your local school or your church or your Rotary, civic organization may also have something similar. So you just need to do a little research and ask around.
And another reason why we're talking about this now is that on our most recent trip, when we were in Ireland, we had another experience with a foreign exchange student that will tie back in here in a little bit. But so it's on our brains right now, and we were thinking about it.
Definitely.
When it comes to requirements for hosting, you got to provide meals, room and board, transportation to and from school, because they're probably a teenage kid that doesn't have a driver's license, so so you're gonna have to cart them around. That's why other siblings that have driver's licenses is nice, because then, like for me, if I
That
was
is a benefit.
junior,
Mhm.
we could go everywhere, and he didn't have to have parents always driving him to and from. And they usually, the kids that come from foreign countries usually come from families of moderate wealth or high wealth. It's not just so they come with abilities to pay for some things, and it's not just like you're going to pay for everything. They have some wealth usually.
Yeah, so it is a volunteer position. So federal regulations will actually prohibit you from getting paid. And I think that's really great because you don't want families signing up to this just because they think they're getting paid for it, because then it
Not
might
at all.
not be a very good experience for anybody involved. So like you said, the student will pay for some of their other expenses like school fees that are incurred because of field trips or supplies. That would be covered by them. And then also toiletries, entertainment, things like that. But I want to hear more because honestly, it's been a long time since we've talked about this. I want to hear more about your experience with Hilda. I didn't know her, but I did get to meet Linus. So why don't you share with our listeners what it was like to have them in your home, and what did you do together? What do you remember?
Okay, so with the Rotary exchange system, ironically, it was truly a Rotary system. Approximately, each student comes and they would have 3 months with one family, 3 months with another family, and then 3 months with another family. And that's what we had with Hilda. She came and we only had her for 3 months. But that bond is, you have it forever. And Hilda's from Norway. I was young. And
Was she your first?
She was the
Were
first one.
you her first family
Yes, I
in the
believe
rotation?
so. It's been a long time. I think so. I can remember the other families that hosted, but it's kind of weird that I can remember that. But yeah, we were. I think we were first.
Because I would think that would make a little bit of a difference
It
in her
does because you're the
experience.
bonding to the country. You're the person that teaches them a lot about culture and things. And we had that with Linus as well. But Linus was a little bit different. But um, you know, when you host the for instance, you find yourself doing all these touristy type things because you're going to take them and show them things. Like you got to go to Minnehaha Falls, which is a really cool, iconic place in Minneapolis. You got to go to certain things that you maybe don't do with your own family
The Mall of
on the
America.
regular. Yeah, well, it wasn't there yet, but you don't do those things when with your family because you live here. It's one of the things you take for granted. Like we live really close to uh, Prince's museum where he lived and died, and we haven't been yet. And people travel from all over the world to come to that. And we're like,
Yeah,
oh,
it is funny. We drive by it every day, every few days, whatever, and we have not taken the tour inside.
exactly. It's kind of weird. So it's
You're a
kind of one of
tourist
those
in
things.
your own city, is what
Exactly,
you're saying.
because you're showing these foreign exchange students, things about where you live. So you do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We did a lot of activities like outdoor activities, boating. I can remember being on the boat with her a lot, with Hilda. But she was a little bit older, so she was more like a big sister to me, and I was young. Linus, on the other hand, was from Sweden, and he was only 1 year older than me, only like 8 months. So we were very, very tight, very close. And he was our first location. So he came to us. Then when he had to leave, it was devastating because we were like best friends. We did everything together.
I mean, you went to school every day
Yep,
together, came home every
drove
day
to school
together.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even then, when he switched to another family, we still maintained that. But it was so much that he wanted to be with us and we wanted to be with him that for the third installment, something happened. I don't know how it was, but we petitioned and somehow we got him back. So we had him for the beginning, then 3 months off, and then we had him at the end where he stayed into the summertime. So that was great. And a couple of things that I recall, some things just stick in your head. Linus was always tired. And this was one of those things that I learned when you're talking about like traveling. When we travel, we do everything in English, right? We try to do a little bit of words, but when you're a foreign exchange student and you come and you live with somebody, he napped every day. And I was like, why are you always so tired? And the fatigue of having to translate every word all day long takes a toll because he had to learn English because we weren't speaking Swedish. Nobody was going to speak Swedish. So he was listening, translating in his brain, and then speaking English and trying to have conversations. It was taxing. So I can remember very vividly when it was the second time he was back with us because he did that for half a year. But then when he was with us, we started, also I'm like, wow, you're really talking fluently with me and it's really fast. And we realized that he was no longer thinking in Swedish. He wasn't translating anymore. He was thinking in English, hearing in English, thinking in English, and responding without having to think. And that's when that moment happens, it makes it so much easier for them because all of a sudden they're like, I'm just speaking a regular language and not having to translate every single second.
That is super interesting because in both cases of Sonia and Linus and Hilda, they all learn English in their school system,
Sure,
like
but
from
they're
a very young
translating.
age, but it's not their primary language.
Right.
And so it's still for them to be doing it full time, 100%. Yeah, I can see where that would be super exhausting. And that's something that most people, just because they speak English, they don't take into account the toll that's actually taking on them mentally. And then to be in school and learning a language or, having to learn all your school stuff
Right.
in a foreign language too.
What do you remember about Sonia?
I was thinking about this and gosh, it's so sad how much I've forgotten. But I mean, I was away at school. I was away at college. I was an hour away. I did come home on the weekends, but as you recall, I was working my tail off on the weekends. We actually worked together at a video store because I still needed to pay for school. So I came over a weekend. I didn't have as much time to spend with my family or with Sonia. But some of the things I remember would just be, I know the transition at first was a little bit difficult. And it was cultural. She was from a very big city
Madrid.
of Madrid, yeah. And then for her to come to a suburb of Minneapolis where we drive everywhere, we don't have public transportation. It was a culture shock for her. And her personality, I mean, she was a fun person, but she also had a little bit of a stubborn streak. And you are not going to make that girl do something she didn't want to do. And so sometimes getting her involved in things that we wanted to go do as a family or things we thought would be fun for her, she was like, no,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And so you might try to find all these fun excursions and they may not want to participate. So it's always tricky.
And breakdown in communication sometimes with that also adds to that. Linus, and we would get into arguments and fights. You become like siblings, and that cultural like difference on certain things. He and I would argue at times, and then just like brothers, and it was just the two of us in the house. But then like our pace of life was so dramatically different too, because it's much slower abroad, almost everywhere. We are so hectic and high paced here in the U.S., and that takes a toll, and I think that adds some of the stress on the kids.
Absolutely. And actually, I'm glad that you just mentioned that because I was just speaking with our friend. Her name is Kim in Wisconsin, and they are the ones that have the 8th grader. As we speak, he's from Guatemala, and he arrived in October, and he's going to be staying with them till like just before Christmas. So for them, this is just a quick little kind of 2-month. I actually was surprised an 8th grader is quite young, but it is just a 2-month stint. So it's not a super long time. It's kind of just enough to get settled in, enjoy yourself, and then boom, he's off again. But one of the things she just mentioned was we as a family are so busy. We're running to and from work, and then after work, we're running to our son's different, sports events and friends events and neighborhood things. Like they're constantly on the go. And that was really hard for him. And they realized, oh my goodness, he is not used to this much activity. They live a much quieter life in Guatemala. He does participate in school and some sports, but it's not at this frenetic pace that we keep up as Americans. And so I think that was real challenge for them to realize, okay, we need to dial this back, and it's okay if he doesn't go to everything, and maybe we should kind of adjust our schedules a little bit. So that's interesting that you say that. And we noticed that when we travel, and we thought maybe it's a difference in just traveler's pace, but no, they really do live differently in other parts of the world.
And they hit a wall. There's definitely a wall when they come, and like it's that honeymoon stage, in that first couple weeks to like maybe even almost a month, but all of a sudden there's a wall. And I remember Linus, now he's going to hear this and he's going to be like, no, I did not, but he cried like a baby. Usually at night when you're tired and he's stressed and whatnot, but he was very homesick. These kids get very homesick as it's as you should, as you're in a foreign land, speaking a different language, you miss home, the comforts, your parents, all of that. For him, and for all of them, I think that's part of the beauty of the program. I think it's like when we sent our daughter off on EF, on travel abroad for a year. It's about growth and growing up and learning how to deal with different cultures and whatnot. And I would bet Linus would agree that those are parts of the program that are, probably had the most meaning to him. You have this homesickness and, not having his parents there to be able to fall back on. You have to kind of find inner strength and learn how to become somebody that can handle these feelings and these emotions on your own. It's great. I think once you get past that wall, though, it was awesome. I mean, they thrive, they flourish.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And as far as our friends go, he did have homesickness, and he had it fairly quickly. I mean, I think that first week, maybe he was kind of getting settled in. It was fun. It was exciting. It was new. And he's in 8th grade, remember? So, and then I think it was kind of scary, like new school, new family, new environment. Everything was different. The pace of life was different. So I think that took a little adjusting to on everybody's part. And also, not just on the part of the exchange student, but also on the part of the family.
Oh, yeah.
So for example, our friend's son, same age, 8th grader, he realized that he was, I don't know if he realized this, the mom realized that he was extremely jealous. Like all of a sudden, this young man's come into their home and his mom and his dad are giving this kid all this attention and spending time with him and kind of lavishing him with, whatever, not necessarily gifts, but time and attention. And it took away from him in the home. And he's an only child, which is another great reason to do this. Because sometimes having an only child is lonely, and this is good experience for him to learn how to compromise and share. And so it's been a learning curve for both of those boys.
Which is good for everybody.
It's good for everybody. I do think it's great. And right now, they're in a great place. He's kind of got over that hump of homesickness. They've learned a little routine and how to make him feel comfortable throughout the day, give him some space. They do have separate rooms, by the way, which is not required in most of these programs. You don't have to have somebody give them their own room, but he does have his own room, and they said they were grateful they were able to do that because it did give them some space to go to their separate corners, so to speak. But right now, they're kind of really enjoying planning for holidays. They just set up their Christmas tree, and he's participating in some of their family traditions that just make it seem so personal. And I think they really love that. And then the moms have been constantly like talking on WhatsApp. So Kim is sending photos every day, and the other mom in Guatemala is getting them and loving it. And then he calls home once a week on Sunday night. And they keep that very structured so that there's not too much conversation that he's like using them as a crutch. There has to be a little bit of a boundary. But I think they're doing great. They're having a lot of fun. It's working out really well. So I do think that they will be friends for life. I think it's been really, really good for both families. And speaking of friends for life, why don't you share how Hilda and Linus fit into our lives now?
So with Hilda, visits are rare. She was older, more with my friends with my sister's age, but we have visited into Norway to visit her, and we still communicate regularly. But now we find it's on social media. We're usually liking each other's posts of photography, which she's really, really good at. And we also talk about our travels, and we still communicate on the regular.
But she's come back to visit too.
Yeah, oh yeah. But they're not as frequent. Like when we talk about Linus is a different story. We have visited Linus in Sweden with you and I, or you and I with our kids even, 6 or 7 times. I mean, maybe at least. And he's been back to Minnesota equally with his family and.
Well, maybe not equally.
Well, yeah, that's right. Not equally, Linus. You need to get your butt over here.
Exactly.
But our children are now friends, and they probably communicate more than Linus and I do. Like our kids are communicating on social media with their kids, with his kids, and it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Years can go by, and when we see each other, it's like the day has not passed. I love him like a brother, and I always will. He and his family will always be a part of our family and our lives.
Absolutely. And not only was he your exchange student, but now I feel like he's a brother-in-law or something too. I mean, he and I actually talk frequently on Facebook and message. And I mean, I think that's great. And, we share birthday things and, stuff like that. And yeah, it's great. I do feel like his family is our family. It's an extension that just happens to be in a different country.
The funny thing is that Linus knew about you because we started dating when we were just finishing up our junior year of high school. And he was here at that time, but I don't think he ever got to meet you per se at that point because it was after he left that we and I started actually dating. But
no,
he knew
I got to meet him.
Yeah, but I was pursuing you like crazy. So he knew all about you in that time frame, just as he was getting ready to leave and be done being a foreign exchange student here.
What I remember most about that is the two of you talked about bawling like a baby. I was there the day that he left and we said goodbye. Maybe you don't remember this because you were clouded with emotion, but I do because the two of you were bawling, like absolutely bawling. And
moving on.
I could get emotional thinking about it. It was so sweet. I just remember thinking, this is so great, this relationship these two have had, and that they're so emotional about saying goodbye to each other. It was really, really sweet.
All right. What about you and Sonia? When did you see her last?
Well, so for Sonia, it's funny. We didn't see her for years and years. I mean, we also would comment on each other's Facebook posts and share personal, notes and messages once in a while.
But wait. We did see her for a while because we went over and we were in her wedding.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, good memory there, girl. Anyways,
so that was only 1 year, 1 or 2 years after.
A few years after she got married, and she invited us over. We were, unbeknownst to us, we went over there, and we were go to this wedding. But not only did we go to this wedding, they were sitting in
a big Catholic cathedral in Madrid. By the way, it was stunning.
And then they said, in the middle of the service, you need to come with us. We had to go into another room, and we were the official signers of their wedding certificate. We had to sign as, somebody that
witnesses.
The witnesses.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that we were going to be their witnesses.
It was a very special honor.
It was a super big honor, and that was in the moment. We didn't know. We're like, this is really cool.
Yeah, that was very special. And just being there that whole week leading up to the wedding and the things that we got to do and their feasts that they have and the wedding itself. Oh my gosh, we do have to mention though that the reception, it was like 8 courses of food, flamenco dancers. I mean, it was a presentation. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. Sorry about that, Sonia. Yeah, no, it was It was an
It meant a lot to
amazing,
me.
it was an amazing, amazing experience. But after that wedding, we did not see her for a really long time. But then just a few years ago, her family was coming on this big like family reunion vacation, and they were going through a bunch of different states out west, and they went through, kind of ended up in Las Vegas, coincidentally, where my sister lives. So my dad and my stepmom and Tony and I, we flew down to hang out with them while we were there. And that was really fun. We got to meet her kids, and it was great. We had a really fun time. Then, only a year later, ironically, my mom and I went to Spain and we did a tour there. And while we were in Sevilla, Sonia and her husband met us there because Sonia lived in Cadiz, which is just south of Sevilla by a little bit. Her and her husband met us there, and we spent the entire afternoon and evening together. We had a lovely dinner. We went to a flamenco show. And it was like, same thing, as if no time had ever passed. You just fall back into the patterns of communication, and there's no trouble like having a conversation. It just flows. It literally is like having family in just another place in the world.
We do have family. I consider them all family. Immediately after I graduated high school, I went to Sweden for a month to live with Linus and his family. Probably changed my life forever. The relationships built with his family are forever. Since the 80s, we both have gained new family members, but also lost family. And that's, when you feel that pain, even as a foreign exchange student, hostee with their family, I find them as family. I mean, I remember them like it was yesterday. So, you have these relationships all over the world. And I think that's really a spark as to the love of travel and different cultures. And, and really when we travel, we love to meet people and build relationships. And I think a lot of that comes from foreign exchange students and those bonds that we made with these kids when we were kids.
Because you know what kind of relationships it's possible to have. And we should mention, too, that we got to meet Linus's parents and his siblings. We spent time with his entire family at their cabin on the lake in southern Sweden. We visited his sister over in Norway, where she lives now. And it's just been wonderful, like getting to know their whole families, because they came here and got to know ours. And so we got to go there and get to know theirs. So I do feel the same way. And it's so awesome to have these families. And it's really cool, like you mentioned before, that our kids are friends too. Actually, talking about this right now is making me kind of sad. And I feel like we need to book tickets to Stockholm, like stat. I don't know. We're so eager to explore more of the world together, but honestly, sometimes you just need to spend that time and those vacation dollars to go back to some of these much loved places and to the people that you need to see. So let's prioritize that next year, Tony.
Yeah.
Seriously.
These friends that are family now. Not only are they just form our exchange students, but we are great friends and family with some other friends, foreign exchange students, which is weird.
Okay. So this is a great story, and this ties in with our recent trip to the UK. So this
and
was
Ireland.
Okay, yeah, sorry. This is my favorite part of our travels. We were so welcomed by a couple who let us stay in their home. They fed us. They took us all around Belfast and the sights of Northern Ireland, and it was such a warm and familial and lovely time there. But Tony, why don't you tell everybody, who did we stay with, and explain your unique history with them?
So, Jared, my college roommate and one of my best friends to this day had not an exchange student, but it was an exchange student, but a boy named Jared in the 80s came over from Ireland, and we're talking Northern Ireland. And this was in the height of the time of the Troubles and the IRA. And there was a program back then that a guy did where he took children out of schools in young age to get them that were experiencing right in the heart of it, from both sides, north of the wall and south of the wall in Northern Ireland. And they took them and they brought them to America and put them in with families for months at a crack. And what it was to show that people can live with differences, and it's not, they got to look beyond just the way they were seeing things and being brought up in their culture, kind of like giving them a healthier look at how to get along with other people. It was really cool. So they became like brothers, and so much so that he became such a part of the family that Jared came back and visited all the time, had family, had kids, many kids. And they would visit, and then Chris and his family would visit them over in Northern Ireland. And I got to know him by going to my buddy's cabin, and he would come over and visit. And I'd met him many times, became a very good friend with him. And so when I said, "Hey, Jared, we're coming over to Ireland, and we want to come up to Northern Ireland for a few days," he says, "I got you. You come, you stay with me. I'll take you around. We're going to have the best time." And couldn't have been a better host. It was incredible.
Yeah, and I just like how you learned all of his songs. A lot of Irish songs you could actually sing in
I
some
can
of the
still
pubs,
sing 'em.
and some of them are kind of like inappropriate.
Yeah, of course, but that's what you do when you're, college and high school, college age, and you're sitting around a bonfire, and yeah, that's what you do.
Well, it's an incredible story, and when we knew we were going to Belfast, we were so excited to hopefully have him invite us into their home. And he and his wife and his adorable son, they made us so comfortable. And he literally stopped his life for 2 days. Like he did nothing but shepherd us around, feed us, take us on tours, and show us the amazing history from Belfast. And to learn that from a local perspective is so fascinating. His stories and what he experienced growing up during the heart of the Troubles, as they call it, they were really shocking to us and fascinating and really quite unbelievable.
Yeah, we've put off doing a podcast on our time in Ireland, primarily because we don't know how to approach the intricacies of the Troubles. That is what they call that. They call that there in Northern Ireland the time of the Troubles, because is still so fresh for them, and their lives have been shaped by conflict. And who are we to comment on any of it? I mean,
Yeah,
Julie and I
who
were
are we?
visitors for a couple days, but it was 48 hours of the most unbelievable stories of how they lived their lives, and they're still living their lives in some respects to that, with that, over them, that we don't know how to talk about it. We don't even know how to process our own feelings on it. It was incredible and we can't do a podcast about Ireland without mentioning it. So this is our moment where we say it had a lot of impact on us, but we're not going to talk about it when we do our podcast on Ireland.
It's true. I mean, our opinions don't matter. So absolutely, we'll probably do a podcast on Ireland because we did go to a bunch of other places too that are absolutely worth sharing. But as for Northern Ireland, our heart was really full and really heavy at the same time, and it just felt like a really untouchable topic. When we discussed it, we thought there's no way that we could do this justice, and we just shouldn't even try. So just know that we loved Belfast. It was beautiful, and it was rich in history beyond the Troubles, and we would absolutely recommend going there.
Oh yeah, it's an incredible place. Everybody should visit. If they go to Ireland, don't miss Northern Ireland. It's beautiful. And Jared believes that in the next 7 years, it's going to be coming back to Ireland and be reunified with Ireland. It's not going to be a part of the UK. He thinks that probably 2032, I think he said, he thought it was going to be by then. They've been thinking about this for a long time, but
It's
it may or may not
amazing
happen.
to think that they could get there.
Yeah.
It
would be awesome if they do. Now, we bring him up because that just shows more of how these exchange programs and how these kids traveling at young ages just change lives. I wanted to do it. I didn't do it. I wanted to become a foreign exchange student. But you kind of go about like, oh, I'm going to go to college now. Or like after you graduate from high school. These kids, like the ones you're talking about, some of them are in 8th grade. Usually they're around 10th, 11th, 12th grade. They're kind of mature enough to handle it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do it and never did it. And I have regret. It's kind of like I didn't study abroad when I was, because after I went to college, after visiting Sweden, after my foreign exchange student, dealings, I really wish I'd done a study abroad because I was in love with travel and foreign cultures. And it all kind of stemmed probably from Linus and Hilda and foreign exchange students.
That's interesting. I wasn't brave enough to do something like that. I was really shy when I was younger, and I think that would have been quite terrifying for me. I was really comfortable in my own environment and my own routine and my own schedule, and I think I'd have just would had such major intimidation over that. I do regret that I'm not more fluent in another language, and I think that would have obviously been something that would have accelerated that process. I do regret not traveling abroad, though, like in college, like not
Like
doing.
backpacking across Europe or something.
Well, no, that has never appealed to me. It still doesn't that much.
It does me.
But no, like taking a semester abroad or Like, I wanted to even do a J term abroad, like something like that would have
Right.
been more in my wheelhouse and my comfort zone. I absolutely think you would have been fantastic at it, but you did get to do that travel for a month with Linus, afterwards, and now we're definitely making up for it now.
I think that, when you look at these things, I think a lot of it has changed and it's hard. And you kind of go with, you're a teenager and you're finishing up school and you're like, oh, should I go do a year and take a year off of your life to go and be a foreign exchange student and then come back and go to college? They do it coming to America like it's nothing. They do it all the time. There's tons of programs where people come to America to do that. For us to do that, I would have loved to have done it, but I think that, you peer pressure, well, all your friends are going to college. You got to go to college too, or you got to do what everybody else is doing. And that's a lot of time to commit.
Or you don't want to miss your senior year and all
Right.
the
'Cause
prom and blah, blah, blah.
Linus missed his senior year of school and came back.
That's why a lot of kids do it in their junior year.
Yeah,
Because
so they
maybe
don't want to
it's
miss their last year of what they call our senior year. They call it something different, but yeah.
I do have a little regret that we didn't get a foreign exchange student in our own family. Why do you think we didn't do that? We both had such amazing.
I don't know.
Maybe because we had a daughter of a foreign
We have
culture.
two daughters, yeah.
And we were so, I mean, that's not an easy process in and itself at the beginning, and for sure. Like, we didn't have space in our home and our brains to process anything else. But later on, we could have.
So, if I had something to recommend, kind of like we did with the gap year when we were talking on our podcast about gap year programs, I would highly, highly, highly recommend, if you're even thinking about it, to look into it more and do it. It is the most rewarding, especially for your family, but for your child, to have that bond with a foreign child and to grow relationships and have that, international relationship is it's quite
It
incredible.
makes the world a much smaller place. It means that you can have community and family and
And
friendship.
empathy,
And yeah, and just know that we're all the same.
right?
No matter where you go in the world, we all want to be happy. We all want to have family and friends. It's really a connectivity thing that is fantastic. So I think the important thing here is that it is connection. It's the connection of friendships that we made in our youth and we kept through our adulthood. It's friends that have become family and part of our own history, but also our journeys past and present. And it's friends that have become generational too, because it's not just about us. It's about our parents that have relationships with these kids, and then now our kids that have these relationships. It is just amazing. I think it's a fantastic experience. So absolutely something worth considering.
That's a good place to end it on, I think.
Yeah.
We'll be back in 2 weeks again with our last regular podcast before our year-end review.
We might attempt Ireland.
We might attempt Ireland on this next one, and then there'll be a year-end review, which will be kind of amazing because I've done some numbers on travels this last year, and we're not even done yet because we just booked a trip a week ago for, that meme where it says, do we need one more? Yeah. You think we need one more? Yeah, I think we need one more. We're going to get one more trip in this year before the end of the year. We're going to Belize in 12 days, and we are going to go birding and go to Guatemala and Tikal and see some things. And we'll talk, I'm sure, about this
It's
in the future.
archaeology, jungle, and the ocean. I'm super excited.
Yes. So that's coming up. And but we'll get these next two podcasts out and then the year in review and take stock in where we're at right now with this and where we go from here. So until then,
Wheels up.